Cook's Companion, and thanks for joining me today. And we're going to be talking chopping techniques. And I hope you've been enjoying my weekly column on oakville.com. So if you have been enjoying it and you read last week's column, I talked to you about the right size knife and how to buy a knife, the fit, and how to keep it sharp as well. Well, today I'm going to show you some of the chopping techniques, because it's great that you've got the right knife, but if you don't know what to do with it, it's not going to do you much good. So why do we want to have the right chopping techniques and the right knife? Well, lots of different reasons. It's going to make your preparation for cooking go by so much faster, and it's totally going to make it easier, and it's going to open up a whole new world of recipes, and you're going to zoom in and out of the kitchen quick and easy. So I'm going to show you a bunch of different techniques, and we're going to start sort of from the big chop and move all the way down. So I have myself a chef knife, and again, if you haven't read the column from last week, go into the archives and you'll see why it's important to have a good sharp knife. And we're going to talk about chopping. Now, chopping you're going to do with almost everything that you need to do, and chop is usually about, I would say, 1/2 inch of a chop. And I'm just using celery today, and you can see I'm just doing a rough chop. Now that's great, but what I want to pay attention to is how I use my knife. I grab my knife at what I call sort of the throat right here. I hold it firm. I take my other hand and I tuck my fingers down, as funny as it sounds. If I'm going to slip and cut myself, I'm only going to be the front of my knuckles and not actually off my tips, but I'm going to keep my hand down. This is going to be my blade, and this is going to be my action moving in and out, okay? I want you to notice that when I chop, it's a rocking motion. Part of my knife never comes off the board. Now I'm doing it super slow for you, but the more confident you get, the faster you can go. So it's a rocking motion, back and forth, and that's the basics of your cooking. This is obviously your chop. Grab an onion, grab an apple, practice at home, because that's all really what it takes, is that rocking motion. All right, I'm not pressing down, I'm rocking back and forth. So if I wanted a chop, that's as simple as I would want to do. If I wanted to perhaps do a finer dice, which is basically a chop but smaller, I would cut whatever it is that I would want on a flat surface. First of all, I'm not going to try to cut this apple while it's rolling around. I'm going to have a flat surface. I'm going to rock again into, again I would say sort of 1/2 inch long pieces of apple. Turn it again on its side, tuck my fingers in, and make a smaller dice. You're going to be able to see this rocking motion all the time when we're chopping. Now if I wanted it even smaller than that, I always say think of it as a puzzle, as taking a puzzle apart and putting it back together. I'm going to make smaller, what we call matchsticks. I'm going to make everything flat on its side, and I'm going to slowly rock my knife back and forth again. So again, that gives me a nice even dice. And it's important to have all of whatever it is that you're preparing the even size if you're cooking it together, for the simple fact is it will then all cook at the same amount of time. If I had a big piece of apple and a small piece of celery, it obviously would cook at different times, so I'd want to make sure I'd cut them to the same time. So there's a chop and there's a dice. Now the other technique that I want to show you is move to a smaller knife, and we talked about paring knives. Now a smaller knife, you want it to be comfortable in your hand, because a lot of the time you're actually going to be using it in your hand like this. Maybe I'm peeling an apple or something. But this time I'm actually going to be taking an orange and peeling an orange. People always say to me, how do you get those nice segments? Well, again, I'm using a flat surface to cut on. I'm taking my paring knife and I'm running down the outside. And I'm taking the peel off, including the white. So very, very simple and easy to do that way. That's how I would use a paring knife. Quite simple and easy that way. Now another thing that we often do a lot of chopping on is garlic, and I would use my small paring knife, not my big chef knife, for actually cutting or chopping anything. It's just a little bit too large of a knife and too small of an item. So I'm using my paring knife again. Same technique, okay? And I'm going to be just slicing. Obviously, I think my family's going to be having a stir fry tonight, but I'm slicing my garlic if I want nice slices, okay? Just like that. Now, if I wanted to mince my garlic, I would get my big knife out, or maybe even use my larger chef knife, flatten it, smash it, take it all together, put my hands back, and slice through. So again, really simple, easy to do. This here, you totally want to watch where your fingers are. And I use my hands all the time, okay? That's the best way. And then I can use the side of my knife as a tool to sort of smash my garlic together, okay? So there's another technique that you can use. Now let's talk julienne. And here we go with some nice red yams, or sweet potatoes I should say. And I want to do a uniformed matchstick. So again, I'm taking 2 pieces here, but I could use 1, but again, now I'm a little bit more confident. I'm taking my hands back and I am doing matchsticks through. So this is great if you want to use French fries or anything like that. So there is a great, perfect little matchstick which will be perfect for anything like that. Okay? You could do that with carrots, you could do that with apples. Now one last one that I'm going to show you, because the last week's column we talked about why it's important to have a serrated knife. I want to cut this beautiful tomato, and I'm actually going to use a serrated knife, which is often known as a bread knife as well. And what I want to be able to do is use a sawing motion, might even be able to hear it, back and forth through the tomato. You may want to be able to turn it on its flat side again. But if I was using a chef knife or a paring knife, I'd have to provide a little bit more pressure on that and I wouldn't get a nice clean edge. I don't want to ruin my beautiful tomato by, sort of smushing down on it. You like that term, smushing? Okay, so again, I'm not applying a lot of pressure. I'm just using those saw-like teeth to go back and forth on the tomato. So there's a great knife for something that has a harder exterior but a softer inside that you don't want to. So there are some great chopping techniques. 3 knives that we used. We used the paring knife, we used a chef knife, and we used that serrated knife. That's all you need in your kitchen. Lots of different cuts that you can learn to do. Next week what we'll do is we'll do some recipes, because now you've got the knife, you're going to go home and you're going to practice on your chopping. I'm going to give you some great recipes, some hearty stews where you're going to have to chop and dice and